The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, says scientists are deeply concerned about a new variant of coronavirus that's been discovered in South Africa. As yet, it hasn't been detected here in the UK, but the government is now suspending all flights from South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Lesotho and Eswatini. 59 cases have been confirmed so far. And speaking in the last hour, Mr. Javid said the variant may be the most infectious yet.
But from what we do know, there's a significant number of mutations, perhaps double the number of mutations that we have seen in the Delta variant, and that would suggest that it may well be more transmissible, and the current vaccines that we have may well be less effective.
Well, our medical editor, Fergus Walsh, is here. Do we have any idea what we're dealing with at the moment?
Well, Clive, this is really a rapidly evolving situation. This variant was only identified a couple of days ago, but I have to say tonight, this is genuinely a cause for concern, but not for alarm. Now, coronaviruses mutate all the time, but this has something like 50 mutations, more than we've seen in any other variant so far, far more than in the Delta variant, which is the dominant global strain now. One scientist said to me that this was the worst variant they'd seen so far, and a dramatic change from everything we've seen since the Wuhan strain first emerged last year. Now, on paper, it's worrying, but there's no evidence yet that it causes more severe disease. There's no evidence that current vaccines are ineffective, and other scary variants have popped up and disappeared without trace. But it'll take 3 weeks for cases in South Africa and elsewhere to translate into hospitalizations, and 4 weeks for it to show up in deaths. And if we wait to act until then, it'll be too late.
OK, but to be clear, there has not been a case so far in the UK.
No cases here so far identified, and the UK has some of the best surveillance in the world. In terms of direct flights, they are being banned, suspended from midday tomorrow, and these 6 countries put on the red list with a quarantine reimposed. We've only had 59 cases so far confirmed in South Africa. So it really is very early days, Clive.
OK, and world reaction to this then?
So the variant is B11529. It doesn't have a name yet, but the World Health Organization are meeting an emergency session tomorrow talking to the South African officials, and it's likely to get a name after a letter of the Greek alphabet. We've already had Alpha, Beta, Delta, and it may be called the NU variant. But we'll know well before Christmas whether this is the next big twist in the pandemic. But the really vital message is that people should continue to get vaccinated, because so far the vaccines have provided a high level of protection against all variants in terms of serious illness. So that is the best advice tonight. OK. Fergus, many thanks. Fergus Walsh, our medical editor there. Well, in a moment, we'll hear from our correspondent in South Africa, Andrew Harding. But first, let's talk to Nick Eardley at Westminster. Nick, just how concerned is the government about this?
Well, there is real concern in Whitehall about this variant tonight. Clive, you heard it in the Health Secretary's voice in that clip you just played. He was speaking after the senior ministers got advice from senior scientific advisors about what they'd found out. And the level of concern in that meeting was such that ministers felt that they had to act immediately. Speaking to others involved in the conversations today, it's clear there is real nervousness about where this variant might go. Now, it's worth remembering that the red list, the final countries, were only removed from that red list a month ago. So it's also significant that 6 countries are being added back to it. Even more significant that such is the urgency that ministers have said that they're suspending flights until hotel quarantine in England can come into place. It will come into place slightly earlier in Scotland from Saturday morning. But the message from ministers is that this shows the pandemic is not over. It shows that they're prepared to take urgent action to protect borders after being criticised in the past for not acting quickly enough. But when it comes to restrictions here, the message is also that that's not on the cards at the moment in terms of extra restrictions and that plan B that the government has in reserve.
All right, Nick, thank you for that. Nick Eardley there at Westminster. Andrew in South Africa. How well equipped, Andrew, is South Africa to deal with this new variant?
Evening, Clive. Pretty well equipped. In fact, scientists here are saying it's almost like they're being punished for being so quick to spot and to analyse this new variant and to raise the alarm. Tonight, those top scientists are working at a laboratory outside Durban, trying to understand the mutations on this new variant. The one thing they do know is that it is extremely transmissible. It's spread far faster than previous variants during previous waves of infection here in South Africa. And they say that really is a cause for concern, even though, as Fergus was saying, we don't know whether or not this poses a significant threat in terms of people who've been vaccinated and so on. Right now, South Africa seems to be on the cusp of a new wave of infections, its fourth wave, so that's an added concern. But tonight, top scientists here telling me they're really not happy with these new red listings, with the borders going up. What they say South Africa needs is more support, more help, more reward for the fact that it's been so good at spotting these new variants and helping the world deal with them. Frustration too, of course, about levels of vaccination around Africa, still hovering at 3 or 4%. That's a real concern if this variant spreads. But here in South Africa, about 2/3 of older people have been vaccinated, and that is certainly a source of some encouragement.
OK, Andrew, many thanks for that. Our Africa correspondent, Andrew Harding, there in Johannesburg.